It is an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you again. We had this conversation earlier, didn't we?
We did.
About the last time a face-to-face was a fantastic brunch in Dubai.
It was. I'd never been to a lunch in Dubai before, and I'd heard all these stories about how wild these brunches get. So, it was great to go out and experience that. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was good fun.
It was a really good time. And it wasn't too bad, was it? It was quiet, some nice views and sort of like 70 floors up afterwards.
Me,
Dubai.
you and Drew.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago, was it? Last few months.
Was it August?
It was February. Geez.
Yeah, I think that was the last time I was out in Dubai. August. Yeah. And you've been doing, obviously, since that period of time we spoke again, we've got this book, which we've got a signed copy from you to give away for the International Classroom Podcast in UAE, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for that. But lots of interesting things have taken place in that short space of time. And you talked about some of those in the keynote this morning as well, didn't you? So just give us a brief review of some of these key things that you've seen take place over the last 6 months. Yeah, I mean, we've continued to see, I suppose, artificial intelligence tools advance. I think it's really interesting that we're starting to get a glimpse of what might be coming over the next few years, and it looks like it's going to be quite advanced. Now we're almost taking people's word for this at the moment. So, and I understand why people are very critical of it. So you got like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, other CEOs who are like, right, we're working on AGI. It's going to be out this year. Like advanced general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. So and you can go, right, well, he's doing that for investment, surely. He's doing it to try and keep his place on the world stage. I'm sure there's some of that there, but we're hearing a lot more kind of murmurings about what's going on behind the scenes. So I think we are going to see this getting more and more advanced. And I suppose my job is, my self-imposed job, which seems to be working, is I try to be like a bit of a filter for people in education. So there's some things I look at, some things I won't, some things are relevant. Like, for example, DeepSeek a few weeks ago kind of made the news. I understand why it made the news. I understand why it's important. I didn't think it was particularly relevant for the average educator out there, so I didn't really pursue it in terms of like talking about it or making any content on it. So I'm really kind of interested in how is this going to work on the ground for teachers. And I suppose that side of my work is still going, and it's amazing to be able to work with educators and leaders in schools, colleges, universities, and some businesses as well around the world. But I suppose over the last few months, well, probably the last 6 months, started to think about how do we make meaningful change. So for me, it's not just about, well, how do we integrate AI into education? I mean, first of all, do we need to? How do we do that safely? I think there's a whole set of questions around that. But I'm beginning to get increasingly more concerned with how do we adapt education to be able to prepare our students to succeed in a world that has AI. So it's almost like the other way around of thinking about it. And as somebody who's kind of been involved in education and innovation for a while now, I've always gone from the grassroots, and I don't think that's enough anymore. And I think maverick teachers, maverick schools, maverick head teachers, principals, there's a lot out there doing some amazing work. But unless the system changes, it's always uphill. It's always an uphill battle. You've always got to try and prove yourself. I know, like, classic example, you've had Hugh Finey on your podcast, fastest growing online school in the UK, and any time I see him doing any interaction on social media, he's always having to still justify his school. It's not like having the fastest growing school in the UK is enough. He's still got to continually be justifying the innovation. And I get that we need some of that, but also I think it's what that shows is that we've got individual innovation happening, but we don't have a system of innovation. So I've been thinking about how do we come from the top down as well. Now, I suppose that's difficult because we're talking there about governments, we're talking about systems. But myself and a friend of mine, Ian, who has been he's
was an innovator in education. He gets to spend his time now he travels the world, kind of putting on conversations. No benefit to himself necessarily. He just loves going, right, how do we get educators together to talk about innovation? And so he lives quite close to me. He's on the Scottish border, which isn't too far from me. And we meet up and we were thinking, well, how do we go from like the top down, especially considering we're not MPs, we're not in government, we're not. So we decided, well, why don't we just put ourselves on the line and invite government, invite people, heads of organisations in the UK that are making change happen or have big responsibilities in education, and bring them together. And see if they'll come first and foremost, and then try to have this conversation. And I think as it grew and grew and grew, I couldn't get this image out of my head of, the climate change COP, and the fact that every year or every 2 years
I think it's every year.
Yeah, I think it might be now, isn't it? Yeah. So the representatives from governments around the world come together and go, right, what do we want our targets to be for the next 5 years? And then they come to a shared understanding, shared agreement, sign up to it, and then they try and make it happen. It doesn't always work, as we know. And I thought, imagine if we had that, like some kind of universal international effort, which could be like an educational version of COP, where representatives of countries from around the world come together, they share the innovation, so it's not being siloed, it's not our education system versus your education system. It's about how do we prepare our students for success in this rapidly changing world. We share ideas. We go, you know what, we probably need to change some of our traditional systems in certain ways, and how do we commit to something and try and work towards it and help and support each other. So the idea for EdCOP came about, really. And so the initial meeting, EdCOP 1, was just before BET, the big EdTech conference in London, a few weeks ago, and because everyone's in town, so we held the first meeting, which was, for the first one was very UK based, but we did have some. So we had Richard Clutter, who is the head of ISTE in America, used to work with Barack Obama in the White House on education. He came to it. We had Lord Joe Johnson, who is the CEO, I want to say, although it might be another title, of FutureLearn. We had Lord Jim Knight, who I know you've recently had on your podcast. He came along. We had the head of the Digital Poverty Alliance. We had heads of people high up in the head teachers organisations. Like a lot of people come together, and we kind of just went, right. We were very vulnerable. And I suppose, explaining it a bit like I'm explaining it to you, and just go, look, we all know we can do better. Yeah. How do we do it? And I was very clear, we don't want this to be a talking shop, because there's so many places, and I do a lot of conferences like yourself, where conferences are amazing for inspiration. It's like the mountaintop experience, isn't it? But everyone has to return to the valley. And that's where real growth happens. So we need action. We can't just be looking back to the mountaintop experience going, oh, that was amazing, it's inspired me, but it's dwindling out now. We need action. And also because we're busy, aren't we? Who wants to be gathering, just have the same conversation over and over and over again? So we were kind of really honest, where we just went, look, some of the people in this room are people who can actually make things happen if they tried. So how do we together start making action? How do we start making change happen? So we had government representatives there. So how do we now take this to the next level from a government level, or a parliamentary level? How do we now take this to the next level in terms of getting young people involved in this as well? A bit like how COP has a youth strand to it. We're we're going to need young people involved in this as well. So it was all about action. Which I think it needs to be. And I think the moment it stops being about immediate action, I'll probably stop it. But I just feel like, I even said to Ian, who's kind of the co-chair with me, I said, look, if we get these people together in a room and they all turn around and go, nah, that's not a good idea, or it can't happen because of this, I'll walk away just happy that we had the conversation. Yeah. I think I'd quite happily live the rest of my life going, I tried. But if there's a way through, if there's a glimmer of light coming in through a crack in that steel door that doesn't want to open, then we'll keep pursuing it until.
Should have gone down the Tom Cruise route. The story of Tom Cruise
right.
Was in one of the Mission Impossible films, and he wanted to do one of the stunts.
Right. Okay.
And it might have been when he was hanging off the plane, and it was Matt Damon telling this story, and he's like, so Tom Cruise wants to do this stunt, and it's like probably the most dangerous stunt in the world, and the stunt coordinator at the time was like, no. So they're like, what did he do? Well, I got a new stunt coordinator. Basically, would let him do it, and it's like that. If you're there with these, that's a terrible rendition of the story, by the way, from me.
It sounded just like Matt Damon.
Nah, I can't think of doing it. Matt Damon. Sorry. But it sounds like that. It almost like you want to go, well, if you're not going to do anything about it, jog on. We'll find someone who will almost. And we want to do that, but
and it's so complex because I think if it was easy, someone would have done it already.
Yeah.
And people have tried, and I'm aware of different organisations that are pushing a similar agenda. But I think we need to give it some new life, and I think especially now, and it's interesting because I had to really make it clear that this is not about integrating AI into education. I mean, a lot of that's my day job, and that's what I do helping schools. But this is more like the other way around. It's more, well, how do we prepare our students for success, and therefore look to innovate the education system in a world of AI, and not limited to AI, in a world of advanced technology, in a world of, I suppose, politics the way it is, in a world of in the real world, not the world how we want it to be, but actually what's happening out there. And I was amazed by some of the people who came. Like, we had some huge names come. We had the government come, and it was we've been able to. So Bridget Phillipson, who's the education secretary in the UK, I was able to chat to her about it at SPET.
Yeah.
Funny story there. Actually, shall I tell the story?
We can always edit. We can always edit these things.
I essentially just stuck into the green room a bit, so that when she got off stage from doing her announcement, I was the first person she saw. So,
you've got to put yourself in these situations sometimes, don't you?
Yeah. And the thing is, I've met Bridget a few times because she's from Washington, which is right next to me, and we're the same age, so we've got like mutual friends, and I've seen her before. She's the education secretary. She's on the cabinet for the UK government, so it's hard to get access. So I was like, right, I want to speak to her. I want to give her a copy of my new book. Just walked into the green room like I owned the place. I'm not sure what that says for security.
It's one of those. It's like, name badge. You know who I am, guys. This face is on most of these posters.
But no, it was great to chat to her. I got to chat with Stephen, who is the MP Minister for AI in Education as well, and we had a chat. So it's the start of conversations, but I'm really happy that we managed to make it happen, and hopefully we're going bottom up, and we're going top down, and hopefully we can meet in the middle and start to make some change happen.
Definitely. I've taken some inspiration from your new book. Okay. And obviously we've spoken about this in terms of the types of leaders that we want.
Yes.
One of them being heretics.
Yes.
That being said, I have some heretic questions for you.
Okay.
And the first one it kind of alludes to what you've talked about here, but it's about redefining teacher roles. So in this one, it says, let's go in an AI-enhanced classroom. Should teachers transition from content deliverers to facilitators of learning? And what challenges might this shift present?
Yeah, I mean, it's the big debate question, isn't it? If you're online, especially, there's a lot of straw man arguments involved in this. Are you for knowledge? Are you for skills? Traditional education versus progressive education, and it's quite a catty fight out there between, like, especially if you just look online. Actually, it's interesting because I get to go to a lot of conferences where I'm speaking with some of these people who have that more traditional outlook, and actually, I think we all want the best for students. We all, and actually, I think there are good points on both sides, and I think we have to get rid of the straw man arguments that go right either or. I think this is about both. And I think I think there's time for an appropriate time for teaching, for instructional led teaching. Of course there is. But also there's time for the teacher to step back and let the student make their own mistakes, let the student figure a way out, apply knowledge and so on. So I think it's both. But I do think that because, and I'm speaking purely from a UK point of view, although I'm sure it's prevalent in some other places as well, is that we seem to be stuck on this kind of, and I'm going to say this, it carries a lot of baggage, but this whole term of knowledge-rich, knowledge-rich curriculum, knowledge-rich schools. Of course, knowledge has to be there. And I think this is what I'm talking about, this straw man argument. Just because someone talks about skill development doesn't mean they're against knowledge. And we all know that you have to build the building blocks of knowledge in order to develop a skill. It's funny because when you talk about skills, if I'm on panels and things like that, people will say, well, no, knowledge is really important. Well, yeah, just because I'm talking about a skill doesn't mean I'm saying we don't have knowledge. Otherwise, it just makes sense. How do you develop a skill without knowledge? It's just like, so I think we're talking about the same thing. I think what it comes down to for me is we've somehow got this arbitrary curriculum where we go, and it's because we've never had, it's because what we did a few hundred years ago when we go, right, well, what do we teach students? We teach them some geography, we teach them some history, English, so on. And then we go, well, what do we want to teach them? Well, let's try and summarize all of our known knowledge around the geography of the earth, and we'll try and teach them it all, and we'll split it up into units and so on. And then someone comes out with something else and goes, oh, well, maybe we should teach them about this as well. So, okay, we'll put that on, then we'll put that on. And then the government comes along in the form of Michael Gove a few years ago, goes, right, how do we add more to that curriculum? And I just think it's an arbitrary thing. Like what we can teach students or what students can learn is infinite. So for us to try and go, well, this is what they need to know, for me, doesn't make sense. And I think what we do by doing that is we get ourselves in a position where we're under-resourced, our students are having to just cram knowledge for an assessment, just for the sake of an assessment or an exam. So I think there's got to be a point where we go, no, we can't just keep asking our students to memorize more and more and more things just so that they can pass an exam. And let's be honest, you forget most of it.
Oh yeah,
you forget most of it. So actually, why can't we do the knowledge and the skills development at the same time?
I think my stance on that, and maybe it's quite simplistic, but I would look at it and the way I say it is application of knowledge is power. So I'm going to teach you the science, I'm going to teach you something about biology, about cells, but once you have that knowledge, it's how I get you to apply that. Yeah. So critical thinking, creativity, innovation, problem solving, there's all these things you can do with it. And for me, that's where I use AI to assist me with developing activities that help with doing that. And it means that for my lessons, I can now deliver activities and adapt things that years gone by before it's like it might have taken me 90 minutes to do so, or I wouldn't have done it because I'm like, I can't think that way, I don't approach it that way, I don't have the background knowledge myself to go, hey, this is what innovation is. And it's those types of things I find are, I think, improving for me as a teacher, helping me where I can be a traditional teacher, and at the same time I can then switch in my lesson and be a facilitator where I take a step back and go, right, I've done the input, now you're going to do some output. In other words, what can you do with this?
It's funny, I just did a workshop, and we were having a discussion about the risks and the benefits of introducing AI, and there was a teacher in the room, and she gave that essentially what you said as an example. So she said what it allows her to do is it allows her to pivot really quickly within a lesson. And so just like what you're saying, if in a lesson she thinks, oh, actually what I've had planned isn't going to work here, or where I thought my students were, it's not where they're at the minute, or actually, how do we take what we're learning here and just try and apply it to something? And she uses AI in the moment to do it. It's very transparent with her students, but she uses it in the moment so she can pivot really quickly. And it was quite a powerful example, really, of how it's impacting that teacher and the quality of their lessons. I do think I do think. Sorry, I've lost my trail of thought there. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
You'll edit that bit.
Yeah. We'll go on to the next one, because obviously what we've got then in classrooms, talking about teachers who are utilising it, being transparent with students. And realistically, I suppose the big picture is we want students to be comfortable and competent with utilising AI. But we're also seeing student resistance to AI tools. So in this scenario, we've got a group of students who express discomfort with AI monitoring their learning habits. How would you address those concerns whilst also highlighting the potential benefits of AI integration?
I think we have to give the power to the student. And I think when it comes to using artificial intelligence, or any tool, I guess, the first thing we do is we go, well, how's this going to help me as a teacher? And I suppose that's natural, isn't it? You go, well, how's it, especially when teachers are suffering with workload issues and so on, you go, well, how is this actually going to help me? I think the next question should very quickly come, and that is, actually, what's this going to look like if I give it to my student? So, for example, I do a lot of workshops where I introduce teachers to some AI tools that will help them. Some of them help with feedback, and a lot of teachers are like, this is amazing. Like, I'm gonna get to mark or give feedback on a whole class's worth of work in a short period of time, and so on, And then I think, well, actually, what if you just give this to the student?
Yeah.
What if you give them the power to be able to close the feedback loop themselves and learn and get better and learn and get better? And I think this it kind of comes back to what we were just talking about, and that is, if there is so much knowledge out there now in terms of artificial intelligence tools, how do we enable our students to be able to get the most of that? Well, we have to foster curiosity. We have to foster motivation. So if I've got a student who goes home, does a bit of work, and isn't really bothered about improving that work because it's just not the culture of what we've got going on at the school at that moment in time, we just haven't drilled that into the culture, then yeah, we're not going to make the most of the artificial intelligence. But if we're able to say to the student, you know what, go again, get the feedback from artificial intelligence. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be as good as the teacher, but the teacher's not at home with you, so learn, see what it's coming out with, and see if you can improve. And I think giving that power to the student rather than just putting it in the teacher's hand, I think will help that. It's interesting, I do get some students who, because I do a bit of work with students where they talk about the worries that I hear are that they're worried about them not being able to do the job they want to do because of how advanced artificial intelligence is getting. And I think those are really the valid concerns. And I think it's on us as well to go, well, you might not be able to do that job how it was done, but actually you could take the knowledge and skills that you've got and be able to work with an AI to lead on that type of project or that type of work.
I think if you think of any job 25 years ago, 50 years ago, I mean, even teaching, like when I was in primary school, OHP over there, and then it still got chalk, and then it was on to like, right now we've got whiteboards and pens, and then it got to projectors and PowerPoint, and now we've got smart boards, and you know, every job has changed. I don't think it matters. I think it's important that we create that flexibility, adaptability within the students to go, like you've just said, no job is going to be, look at what's happened previously. You know, it's about you being able to do it in a different way. I think that's a really good piece to take away from it. I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you are someone that goes around, as you've said, that deals with a lot of tools, AI tools. So this question is about AI tools. So I want you to imagine AI tools had personalities.
Okay.
Which AI application do you think would be the perfectionist? And which one would you think is the procrastinator?
Okay, this is an interesting question. I've never had this before.
I'm trying to ask, this is what, the fourth time? We're trying to, as you said, let's ask some questions that we've not done before.
Thanks for the heads up on that.
Well, if you were here yesterday, everyone's coming in, people coming in, it's like, oh, I've heard you ask some really difficult questions. I was like, Paddy's been going around because it did something, and I said to everyone, and maybe I didn't give him a heads up for this one, by the way. I said to Paddy, right, I'm asking you, and it was, if education had a theme tune, what would yours be? So Paddy's been going around telling everyone to get ready for this musical question. So you can have the music question if you want instead. You know.
Can you tell I'm trying to buy for time? So well, I suppose the first half of that question is really easy because AI is, especially tools like ChatGPT, are designed to want to give you the right answer all the time. It's literally in their programming to try and do that, even though they might be confidently giving you a wrong answer. So then when you say to it, "Ascii, that's not right," it goes, yeah, of course, let me give you the... Yeah. So I suppose it's got that perfectionist element to it. The procrastinator question, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I don't know. I
don't think any AI is a real procrastinator, are they?
Yeah. I suppose if your internet's bad, then it might take a while. I was trying to answer this question.
It's a hard one. We got you thinking here. You know, these are the types of things we want in terms of AI platforms that procrastinate and just give stuff at the last minute.
Yeah. I think that it's probably a good point to go, well, it's probably not how AI works. Yeah. AI wants to give you it all instantly, whereas humans work differently. And I think when we talk about artificial intelligence, we try to equate, or we try to put on the same level human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and we go, well, artificial intelligence is getting better at this, and this. That means we can't do this, and this, and this. And I think when we do that, and I wrote a chapter on this in my new book, I think when we do that, we create a humans of the gap scenario where we go, well, AI can do all of this, but it can't do that. So actually, let's learn to do that. Yeah. And you probably, as a head of sixth form yourself, you probably get questions from parents like, what should our child do at university that's going to actually be valuable, especially in a world of AI in a few years' time? And I really don't like having to think about, well, focus on this thing because AI can't do it, because actually the likelihood is AI will be able to do it eventually. Yeah. And we're putting humans in a gap that is going to be filled probably maybe next year, maybe 10 years time. And therefore the value of that human being, we're kind of equating with what AI can and can't do. And I don't like that. I think we're fundamentally different to artificial intelligence. And one of the ways is that procrastination element. Now, the fact that some of us work in a way where we've got to let our subconscious just mull over it for a few weeks, and we need the pressure before we can perform at a high rate. I'm certainly like that. While I've been giving you a really indirect answer to your question, I have just thought of a tool.
Go on.
The advanced models of ChatGPT, the ones that think. So if you've tried like the O1 or 3 models, where if you ask it a complex enough question, it can take like a minute or 2 minutes to really mull over the answer. I suppose it's not procrastinating, but it's just taking its time.
And it tells you how long it's been thinking for as well, doesn't it?
And I tried it the other day. I noticed, I don't know if it's a new feature, I've just noticed it. You can see the internal dialogue it's having with itself. Yeah. Where it goes like next week I'm working in Seattle, and I'm taking the family with me, and we're going to hire an RV. We're going to drive around a bit, and so I used one of the advanced reason models to try and like plan the trip, and you can see it. So it comes up, it goes, the user wants to do this. Can we provide them with this? And it's like having an internal monologue with itself. It's bizarre to see it happening. But yeah.
I've got in the back of my head, it's like HR when you phone up and you've got you're on hold and you've got 2 people just having a conversation about you before they come back.
Yeah.
A little bit like that. Yeah, Deep. Obviously, we talked about the Chinese one now. I can't remember the name. Is it DeepSeek?
Yeah.
It does that one as well. And I actually found the internal dialogue it came out with was better than its general output.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah. When I was just trying around with it, I was like, I'm just going to take that one. I like that. I'll take that and use that instead. But that ties us into the next. I mean, we could go on about this, couldn't we? Because obviously we've seen changes in ChatGPT, what they're saying they're going to bring out in the next, who knows, weeks, months, in terms of one model rolled into one, as it were, to make things easier. Because, like say with innovation, you've got companies pushing other companies to do, we hope better things and, things that will drive human flourishing forward, not necessarily push us down, and as we all know, talk about this drop in critical thinking and cognitive dissonance and all those things that cause us to switch off. We don't want that. We want, as you say,
changes in innovation. We want improvements in education. We want our students to be future-proofed and future-readied, and lots of good things there. And we could continue this conversation for hours, I'm sure. But unfortunately, you've got a plane to catch, haven't you?
I do, yeah. I'm going to head home, see the family. So, no, it's been great to catch up with you again, and always like chatting with you, Alex. So thank you.
Always learn something. Always something to take away. So I really appreciate it, Dan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.